The champagne glass slipped from my hand, shattering against the marble floor of our kitchen as Rachel's voice carried through the bedroom door. I wasn't supposed to be home this early from my business trip to Dallas, but my client meeting ended sooner than expected. What I heard next would shatter far more than just crystal. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Tyler, I need to tell you something that's been eating me alive. Rachel's voice trembled through the phone. David and we haven't been intimate in 3 months.
We tried, but it's like he's not even present.
Last night he couldn't even. She paused, and I could hear her crying. I feel so alone, Tyler. You're the only one who really understands me. My blood turned to ice. Tyler Brooks, her personal trainer. The man she claimed was just a friend who helped her with her fitness goals. The same man she'd been texting at all hours, supposedly about workout routines and meal plans. Rachel, you know I'm here for you. Tyler's voice came through the speaker, smooth and practiced. David doesn't deserve someone like you. You're incredible, beautiful, passionate. If he can't see that, he's blind. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like if I'd chosen differently, Rachel whispered. If I'd said yes when you asked me out in college instead of choosing the safe option. The safe option? That's what 5 years of marriage meant to her. I was the reliable software engineer who paid the bills while she pursued her marketing career. The one who worked 60-hour weeks to afford our house in Cedar Park, our 2 cars, her designer clothes. The one who surprised her with weekend trips to San Antonio and Houston thinking I was building a life with my soulmate. Still can choose differently. Tyler's voice dropped lower. David's always traveling for work anyway. When's the next time he'll be gone? Next week. Seattle. 3 days. Rachel's response came too quickly, like she'd been thinking about it. I stood frozen in our hallway, surrounded by the photos of our supposedly happy life together. Wedding at Lakeway Resort, honeymoon in Cabo, anniversary dinners at the rooftop grill. All of it felt like elaborate lies now. Perfect, I'll pick you up Thursday evening. We'll go to that new place in downtown Austin, the one with the private dining rooms. You deserve to be treated like a queen, not ignored like David treats you. Tyler, I can't. I'm married. 2. A man who doesn't appreciate you. Rachel, we've been dancing around this for months. You call me when you're crying, when you're lonely, when David disappoints you again. I'm the one who listens when you tell me about your dreams, your fears, your deepest thoughts. Isn't that what marriage should really be? Conversation continued for another 20 minutes. 20 minutes of my wife sharing intimate details about our relationship, our bedroom, our fights, our finances. Details that should have been sacred between husband and wife were being handed over to another man like ammunition. Tyler knew about my recent promotion, my insecurities about my receding hairline, even the argument we'd had about starting a family. When Rachel finally hung up, I heard her footsteps approaching the kitchen. I quickly swept up the glass shards and pretended to be checking emails on my phone. David, you're home early? She appeared in the doorway, her face flushed.
Oh.
Was Dallas productive? I managed, studying her face. The same face I'd kissed goodbye 3 days ago, telling her I loved her. The same face that had just been planning a date with another man. How was your day? Oh, same old routine. Had a session with Tyler at Peak Fitness, then worked from home. The lie rolled off her tongue effortlessly. One missed. She moved to hug me, and I fought every instinct to pull away. Her perfume smelled different, stronger, like she'd reapplied it recently. I missed you too, I said, the words tasting like ash. That evening, Rachel made my favorite dinner, spaghetti carbonara, and opened a bottle of wine. She was being unusually attentive, asking about my trip, laughing at my stories about the demanding client in Dallas. To anyone watching, we looked like a perfectly content married couple enjoying a quiet evening at home. But I couldn't stop thinking about the phone call. Every smile she gave me felt calculated. Every touch felt like betrayal. When she suggested we watch a movie together on the couch, I found myself analyzing every word, every gesture, searching for signs of deception I'd somehow missed before. You seem distracted tonight, Rachel said, curling up next to me during the opening credits of some romantic comedy she'd chosen. Everything okay? Just tired from travel? I replied, though my mind was racing. How long had this been going on? How many times had she shared our private moments with Tyler? How many of our problems had she taken to him instead of talking? To me, David, we should talk more, she said suddenly, her hand resting on my chest. I feel like we've been growing apart lately. The irony was suffocating. Here she was, expressing concern about our communication while she'd been having deep emotional conversations with another man behind my back. Tyler knew more about my wife's inner world than I did, and I was her husband. What do you want to talk about? I asked, curious to see how deep her deception went. I don't know. Everything. Your dreams, your fears. Sometimes I feel like we're just going through the motions, you know? It's like roommates instead of lovers. If I hadn't overheard her conversation with Tyler, I might have been moved by her words. I might have opened up, shared my own feelings about the distance I'd been sensing between us. Instead, I realized she was fishing for more material to share with her confidant. I think we're fine, I said carefully. Maybe we both just need to make more effort. She nodded, but I caught a flicker of disappointment in her eyes. She wanted more. She wanted the kind of vulnerable, soul-bearing conversation she'd been having with Tyler. The kind where I'd admit my insecurities and fears so she could package them up and deliver them to the man who was actively trying to steal my wife. The next morning, I watched Rachel get ready for work with new eyes. She spent an extra 20 minutes on her makeup, chose a dress I'd never seen before, sprayed perfume in places she usually didn't bother with when it was just another day at the office. Big presentation today? I asked casually. Oh no, just want to look professional, she said, avoiding eye contact in the mirror. You always look beautiful, I said, meaning it despite everything. That was the cruel part about loving someone. Who was betraying you? The feelings didn't just disappear because you discovered their lies. She smiled at the compliment, but it didn't reach her eyes. Thanks, honey. I'll probably be late tonight. Kevin scheduled a team dinner to discuss the new campaign. Kevin Park was her colleague, someone I'd met at company parties. But I wondered if Kevin even knew about this supposed dinner, or if it was just another cover story. After Rachel left, I sat in our home office staring at my computer screen, unable to focus on the code I was supposed to be debugging. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Kevin Park from my own company, asking if I wanted to grab lunch. The coincidence of the name made me think about how many Kevins existed in our social circle. How easy it would be for Rachel to use one as an alibi. While she was actually with Tyler, I found myself looking through Rachel's social media for the first time in months. Her Instagram was filled with photos from Peak Fitness, many featuring Tyler in the background or standing next to her, his hand casually placed on her shoulder. The comments were telling too. Tyler's responses to her posts were always just a little too familiar, too intimate for a professional trainer-client relationship. Looking amazing as always, Ratch. The dedication is paying off. So proud of your progress. Can't wait for our next session. You bring out the best. In my training, I scrolled back months, watching the progression of their online interaction. It started professionally enough, but gradually became more personal. Photos of them at the gym became photos of them at smoothie bars, then at restaurants, then at outdoor events around Austin. Always with groups, always with plausible explanations. But the pattern was unmistakable. My phone rang, startling me out of my investigation. It was my mother, Linda Chen. David, honey, how are you and Rachel doing? Your father and I were thinking of driving down from Round Rock this weekend to see you both. We're good, Mom, I said automatically, though the words felt foreign in my mouth. This weekend might not be great, though. Rachel has some work. Events. She works so hard, that girl. You're lucky to have someone so dedicated. If only my mother knew what Rachel was really dedicated to. Mom, can I ask you something? The words came out before I could stop them. How did you and Dad handle rough patches in your marriage? There was a pause on the other end. Is everything all right, David? You sound troubled, just curious? Every marriage has challenges, right? Of course, honey. The key is communication and trust. When your father and I had problems, we talked to each other, not to other people. We worked through things together. Why are you asking? No reason, just thinking about how to keep a marriage strong. Well, remember that marriage is a partnership. You're a team against the world, not opponents against each other. And David, if something is bothering you, talk to Rachel about it. Don't let problems fester. After hanging up, I realized the cruel irony of my mother's advice. How could I talk to Rachel about her betrayal when she was sharing our most intimate conversations with the very man who was trying to destroy our marriage? How could we be a team when she'd recruited someone else to be her real partner? I decided to work from home that day, something I rarely did but which my flexible tech job allowed. Around noon, I drove past Peak Fitness, telling myself I was just going to grab lunch at the sandwich shop next door. Through the large windows, I could see Rachel inside, but she wasn't working out. She was sitting at the juice bar with Tyler, their heads close together in intimate conversation. She was wearing workout clothes, but they were clean, unwrinkled. She'd come here to talk, not to exercise. I watched for 15 minutes, parked across the street like some kind of stalker. Tyler's body language was protective, possessive. He leaned in when she spoke, touched her arm for emphasis, threw his head back, laughing at something she said. They looked like a couple. They looked happy. When Rachel finally stood to leave, Tyler pulled her into a hug that lasted too long. His hand lingered on the small of her back. She looked up at him with an expression I hadn't seen her give me in months. Trust. Adoration. Love. I drove home in a daze, my hand shaking on the steering wheel. Seeing them together made everything real in a way that overhearing a phone conversation couldn't. My wife was in love with another man, and I was the last person to know. That evening, Rachel came home with Chinese takeout from our favorite restaurant, claiming she felt bad about being out during lunch and wanted to make it up to me. She was chatty and affectionate, asking about my day, telling funny stories about her coworkers. She was performing the role of loving wife, while her heart belonged to someone else. How was your workout today? I asked, testing her. Oh, brutal. Tyler really pushed me. I'm going to be sore tomorrow. She rubbed her shoulder dramatically. But you know how he is. He says, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. She quoted him like he was a philosopher instead of a man trying to steal her from her husband. I wondered how many of Tyler's sayings and philosophies she'd absorbed. How much of her thinking was now shaped by his influence rather than our shared experiences. After dinner, while Rachel was in the shower, I made a decision that would change everything. I opened her laptop, which she'd left on the kitchen counter. I knew her password because we'd always been open about these things, or at least I thought we had been. Her email was a goldmine of deception. Dozens of messages between her and Tyler, going back for months. The early ones were about fitness and nutrition, but they quickly evolved into something much more personal. Rachel was sharing details about our marriage that made my stomach turn. She told Tyler about our financial struggles when I was between jobs last year. She described arguments we'd had, making me sound controlling and unreasonable. She even shared intimate details about our physical relationship, comparing me unfavorably to her past experiences. But the worst part was reading Tyler's responses. He was systematically encouraging her dissatisfaction with our marriage, validating every complaint, suggesting that she deserved better. He was playing therapist and seducer simultaneously, positioning himself as the solution to all her problems. In one email from 2 weeks ago, Rachel had written, David surprised me with dinner at the rooftop grill last night for our anniversary. He tries so hard, but I felt nothing. God, is that terrible? I kept thinking about how different it would feel to be there with you. Tyler's response, it's not terrible. It's honest. Can't force feelings that aren't there. Life is too short to settle for okay when you could have extraordinary. You know what we have is special, Rachel? Don't let obligation keep you from happiness. I read email after email, each one feeling like a knife twist. My wife had been documenting the death of our marriage for Tyler's entertainment, and he'd been cheering it on. They'd turned our relationship into a spectacle, with Tyler as the eager audience waiting for the final act. The last email in the chain was from that morning, sent just hours after Rachel had kissed me goodbye and told me she loved me. Can't wait for Thursday. I've been dreaming about having you all to myself. David leaves for Seattle Tuesday, right? Maybe we should move our timeline up. I'm tired of pretending you're not everything I want. Rachel's response was time-stamped from her lunch break. I'm scared, Tyler. What if someone sees us? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. What if David finds out? Then we'll deal with it together. Rachel, I love you. I've loved you since college, and I'm not going to lose you again to someone who doesn't appreciate what he has. Trust me, there it was. The words that confirmed my worst fears. Tyler loved my wife, and from everything I'd read, she loved him back. I was the obstacle standing between them and their happiness, and they were actively planning to remove me from the equation. I closed the laptop and sat in our kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of our dinner and the ruins of my marriage. 5 years of building a life together, and Rachel was ready to throw it all away for her college crush who'd suddenly reappeared in her life. The rational part of my mind knew I should confront her, demand an explanation, fight for our marriage. But another part of me, the part that had been reading her true feelings for the past hour, wondered if there was anything left to fight for. How do you compete with someone who's been systematically positioning himself as your superior for months? How do you win back a wife who's been treating your marriage like a prison sentence? I thought about all the times over the past few months when Rachel had seemed distant, distracted, or irritated with me for no apparent reason. Oh, I understood. She'd been comparing me to Tyler constantly, measuring every gesture I made against some idealized version of what her life could be with him. I'd been failing tests I didn't even know I was taking. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal itself. It was the loneliness. For months, I'd been sensing something was wrong, but couldn't put my finger on it. I'd tried harder, been more attentive, more romantic, more present. I'd been fighting for our marriage while Rachel was confiding in another man about how inadequate my efforts were. Tyler knew my wife was unhappy before I did. He knew about our problems, our fights, our intimate struggles, and he'd used that knowledge to position himself as her savior. I went to bed that night knowing my marriage was over, even though Rachel didn't know I knew yet. She curled up against me like she had thousands of times before, but now her touch felt like a performance. When she whispered, "I love you," in the darkness, I wondered if she was practicing saying it to Tyler. The next morning was Tuesday. My flight to Seattle was at 2 in the afternoon. Rachel made me coffee and toast, packed my usual travel snacks, and kissed me goodbye with what I now recognized as guilt rather than affection. "I'll miss you," she said, but her eyes were already distant. "I'll miss you too," I replied, and meant it. I would miss the woman I thought she was, the marriage I thought we had, the future I thought we were building together. As my plane lifted, off from Austin Bergstrom International Airport, I looked down at the city where my wife was probably already texting Tyler about my departure. I had 3 days in Seattle to figure out how to handle the destruction of everything I'd thought my life was about. 3 days to decide whether to fight for a woman who'd already chosen someone else, or to find the strength to walk away from. The biggest mistake I'd ever made, 'cause that's what Rachel had become to me now. Not the love of my life, but the regret I needed to overcome. Becoming her was going to be the hardest thing I'd ever done. Seattle felt like a different planet. The constant drizzle matched my mood as I sat in my hotel room overlooking Elliott Bay, staring at my phone screen. Rachel had already sent 3 messages asking how my flight went, each one feeling more hollow than the last. One typed and deleted. Responses for 20 minutes before settling on a simple "landed safely." "Long day ahead," her reply came instantly. "Miss you already." Tyler says hi. Ran into him at the coffee shop. Tyler says hi. Even when I was 2,000 miles away, she couldn't go a few hours without mentioning him. It's the casual way she dropped his name into conversation, like it was the most natural thing in the world, made my chest tighten. I wondered if they'd actually run into each other by accident, or if she'd sought him out the moment my plane left the ground. The client meetings in Seattle were a blur. I found myself nodding and agreeing to technical specifications while my mind replayed every email I'd read, every lie I'd discovered. My colleague from the Austin office, James Rodriguez, noticed my distraction during lunch. "You seem off today, David. Everything okay at home?" The question hit harder than it should have. "Yeah, just tired from the travel." "Rachel doing?" "Well, you guys still thinking about starting a family?" I nearly choked on my sandwich. Rachel and I had discussed children exactly once in the past 6 months, and it had ended in an argument when she said she wasn't ready. Now I understood why. How could she plan a family with me when she was planning a future with someone else? Or taking it slow, I managed. That evening, alone in my hotel room, I made a decision that felt both necessary and terrifying. Called Kevin Park, my actual best friend and colleague back in Austin, not Rachel's fictional alibi. David, how's Seattle treating you? Kevin, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. The tone in my voice must have alarmed him because his casual demeanor shifted immediately. What's going on, man? Have you noticed anything different about Rachel lately? You've seen us together at company events or dinners. There was a long pause. David, why are you asking me this? Hey, please just tell me what you've observed. Another pause, longer this time, honestly. She seems distant when she's with you. Like her mind is somewhere else. At the TechFlow holiday party last month, she spent most of the night on her phone. And when you went to get drinks, she was texting someone and smiling in a way that, well, it didn't seem like she was texting her husband. The confirmation hurt, even though I'd expected it. Did you see who she was texting? No, but David, what's really going on? You're scaring me. I told Kevin everything. The phone call, the emails, the lunch meeting I'd witnessed. Saying it out loud made it real in a way that keeping it inside hadn't. Kevin listened without interrupting, occasionally letting out quiet curses under his breath. Jesus, David, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do? I don't know. Part of me wants to fly home right now and confront them both. Part of me wants to just disappear. Don't disappear. You're worth more than that. But maybe don't confront them yet either. You need a plan. What kind of plan? Yes. First, you need evidence. Real evidence. Screenshots of those emails, maybe. A recording of them together. Second, you need to protect yourself financially. Third, you need to decide if this is something you want to try to fix or something you want to end. Kevin, I've read months of emails where she calls me boring, inadequate, emotionally unavailable. She told Tyler things about our intimate life that made me feel like a stranger in my own marriage. How do you come back from that? Maybe you don't. Maybe you find someone who actually appreciates you instead of someone who treats you like a consolation prize. After hanging up with Kevin, I sat on my hotel bed and really looked at my life for the first time in months. I'd been so focused on making Rachel happy, on being the perfect husband, that I'd stopped being myself. I worked extra hours to afford the lifestyle she wanted. I agreed to social events I didn't enjoy because she wanted to go. I'd even started working out more because she'd mentioned how fit Tyler was keeping his clients. I've been trying to compete with a ghost, changing myself to match up against a man I didn't even know was my competition. And the worst part was, it hadn't worked. The harder I tried, the more Rachel seemed to pull away, probably because she was comparing my genuine efforts to Tyler's calculated seduction. My phone buzzed with another text from Rachel. Having dinner with Sophia tonight. Girls' night. Hope your meetings are going well. Sophia was Rachel's sister, which gave this alibi more credibility than the Kevin story. But I found myself doubting everything now. Was she really with Sophia? Or was this another cover story? Had Sophia become complicit in Rachel's deception? Or was Rachel lying to her family too? I decided to test it. I texted Sophia directly, something I rarely did but which wouldn't seem suspicious since we were family. Hey Sophia, hope you and Rachel have fun at dinner tonight. Any good restaurant recommendations for when I get back to Austin? If Rachel was really with her sister, Sophia would respond normally. If she wasn't, Sophia would be confused about a dinner that wasn't happening. Sophia's response came 20 minutes later. Dinner. I'm working late tonight at the hospital. You thinking of tomorrow, maybe? Rachel didn't mention anything to me. There it was. Another lie, delivered so casually that Rachel probably didn't even think twice about it. Sophia's message and added it to a folder I was building on my phone, labeled Evidence. The folder was growing larger each day. I called Rachel, curious to see how she'd handle being caught in a lie. David, how are the meetings going? Her voice was breathless like she'd been running. Good, how's dinner with Sophia? Oh, it's great. We're at this new place downtown, she says hi. That's funny, I just texted Sophia to ask for a restaurant. recommendations, and she said she's working late at the hospital tonight. The silence stretched for several seconds. I could almost hear Rachel's mind racing, trying to construct a plausible explanation. Oh, you know, Sophia, she's so dedicated to her patients that she probably forgot she'd made plans with me. We just grabbed a quick bite between her shifts. At a restaurant downtown? I thought Sophia worked at St. David's North. That's nowhere near downtown. David, why are you interrogating me? I'm just trying to have a nice evening with my sister. The deflection was textbook. Instead of addressing the inconsistencies in her story, she was making me the problem for asking reasonable questions. I'm not interrogating you. I was just confused because Sophia seemed confused. Well, maybe you misunderstood her text. Look, I need to go. Sophia's waiting for me. She hung up before I could respond. I immediately called Sophia back. Hey, Sophia, sorry to bother you again. Rachel said you two are having dinner. David, I'm literally in scrubs in the ICU right now. I haven't talked to Rachel in 3 days. Is everything okay? Yeah, just some miscommunication.
Thanks, Sophia.
I hung up feeling sick. Rachel wasn't just lying to me anymore. She was lying reflexively, creating elaborate stories that implicated innocent family members. The woman I'd married would never have thrown her sister under the bus to cover an affair. But then again, maybe I'd never really known the woman I'd married at all. I spent the rest of the evening researching divorce lawyers in Austin. The process was more complicated than I had expected, especially in Texas, where we'd need to establish grounds or wait for a no-fault period. I made notes about asset division, wondering how we'd split up 5 years of shared finances and property. The house was in both our names, but I had paid the majority of the down payment and monthly mortgage. Rachel's car was financed through my credit union. Our joint savings account contained mostly money from my software consulting side business. The practical aspects of ending a marriage were overwhelming, but they were easier to think about than the emotional devastation. Numbers and legal procedures didn't make me feel like my chest was caving in. The next morning brought a new revelation. I woke up to find that Rachel had posted on Instagram at midnight Austin time. The photo showed her and Tyler at some upscale bar downtown, both dressed up, both smiling like they didn't have a care in the world. The caption read, "Sometimes you need a friend who reminds you to live a little. Thanks for always being there. T." The comments were telling. Several of her friends had responded with heart-tie emojis and fire symbols. Tyler had commented, "Always beautiful, always worth celebrating. Here's to living authentically by her husband." Was working in another city? Rachel was living authentically by going on dates with her personal trainer. The photo looked intimate, romantic. They were sitting on the same side of a booth, Tyler's arm casually draped behind Rachel on the seat back. Anyone looking at that photo would assume they were a couple. I screenshot the post and checked the timestamp against her text about dinner with Sophia. She'd lied to me and then immediately gone out with Tyler, documenting it for social media like she wanted to get caught. Maybe part of her did want to get caught. Maybe she was tired of sneaking around and wanted me to do the hard work of ending our marriage, so she wouldn't have to feel guilty about choosing Tyler. My phone rang. It was my mother again. David. "Honey, I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday. Are you sure everything's okay with you and Rachel? I've been dreading this call, but maybe it was time to start telling people the truth." "Mom, can I ask you something? Have you found out Dad was having an emotional affair, sharing intimate details about your marriage with another woman? What would you do?" The sharp intake of breath told me she understood this wasn't a hypothetical question. "Oh, David, oh, honey, are you sure?" "I'm sure." "How long has this been going on?" "Months." "Maybe longer. I only found out a few days ago." "Have you talked to her about it?" "How do you talk to someone about betraying you when they're actively lying to your face?" "She went out with him last night and told me she was having dinner with Sophia." My mother was quiet for a long time. "David, your father and I raised you to fight for the things that matter. But we also raised you to know when you're worth more than the treatment you're receiving. You can't fight for someone who's already chosen to fight against you." "I love her, Mom. I know you do. But love isn't supposed to make you feel small and worthless. Love isn't supposed to require you to compete for basic respect and honesty." After hanging up with my mother, I sat in my hotel room overlooking the gray Seattle skyline and finally admitted something I'd been avoiding. I didn't just love Rachel. I'd been addicted to trying to win her love back. Every time she pulled away, I tried harder. Every time she seemed dissatisfied, I changed something about myself. I'd been so focused on being good enough for her that I'd forgotten to ask whether she was good enough for me. The answer was becoming clearer every day. She wasn't. That afternoon, during a break between client meetings, I called a divorce attorney in Austin. Attorney Margaret Walsh had good reviews and specialized in cases involving infidelity. Chen, I can schedule a consultation for when you return to Austin. In the meantime, I need you to gather financial documents and evidence of the affair. Do not confront your wife or her partner yet. Do not move money around or make any major purchases. Document everything, but don't let them know you're documenting. What about the house? We both live there. Texas is a community property state, so anything acquired during the marriage is generally split 50-50, unless we can prove fault. Adultery can affect property division and spousal support, but we need solid evidence. I have emails between them going back months. Good. Screenshots, not forwarded emails. We need to prove authenticity. Any photos of them together in compromising situations. I thought about the Instagram post, some social media posts that show them together in what looks like romantic settings. Perfect. Mr. Chen, I know this is difficult, but you're taking the right steps. Many people in your situation try to ignore the problem and hope it goes away. It doesn't get better without consequences. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to a bar by myself. To drink heavily, but to sit somewhere. That wasn't my hotel room, and think about who I was when I wasn't trying to be Rachel's perfect husband. The bartender, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, noticed I was nursing the same beer for an hour. Rough day? Rough life? I said, then immediately felt embarrassed for oversharing with a stranger. Work or personal? Personal. Found. Out, my wife is in love with someone else. I'm sorry. That's the worst kind of pain. What would you do if you were me? She dried a glass thoughtfully. Honey, I've been divorced twice. First time, I fought tooth and nail to save something that was already dead. Wasted 2 years of my life trying to convince a man to love me the way I deserved. Second time, I recognized the signs early and walked away with my dignity intact. Which divorce was easier to recover from? The second one. When you walk away knowing you did everything right, knowing the failure wasn't yours, it's easier to heal. When you spend years begging someone to treat you decently, it damages something inside you that takes a long time to repair. I left the bar with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. I wasn't going to beg Rachel to choose me over Tyler. I wasn't going to compete for my own wife's affection. I was going to go home, gather my evidence, file for divorce, and start rebuilding. A life where I didn't have to constantly prove my worth to someone who'd already decided I wasn't enough. The flight back to Austin felt like flying toward my own execution, but also toward my freedom. Rachel was waiting for me at baggage claim, looking beautiful and guilty. She hugged me tightly and I smelled Tyler's cologne on her clothes. Missed you so much, she whispered against my ear. I missed you too, I said, and realized I was telling the truth. I missed the woman I thought she was. I missed the marriage I thought we had, but I was done missing the life I could have been. Living instead of trying to fix something that was unfixable. The real work was about to begin. Coming home felt like walking into enemy territory. Rachel had prepared my favorite meal, grilled salmon with asparagus, and lit candles around our dining room. The gesture that once would have melted my heart now felt like manipulation. She was trying too hard, overcompensating for something she thought I might suspect. Tell me everything about Seattle, she said, refilling my wine glass for the third time. Did you close the deal with Morrison Tech? I gave her the sanitized version while studying her face. She nodded and smiled at all the right moments, but her eyes kept drifting to her phone, which was face down on the table but buzzing every few minutes. Each notification made her fingers twitch slightly, like she was fighting the urge to check it. Expecting an important call? Asked casually. Oh, just Sophia. She's having drama with her boyfriend again. The lie came so naturally that I almost believed it myself. Almost. After dinner, Rachel suggested we watch a movie together, something we hadn't done in months. She curled up against me on the couch, but I could feel the tension in her body. She was performing intimacy rather than feeling it. When her phone buzzed again, she finally couldn't resist checking it. "Sorry, this might be urgent," she said. Glancing at the screen, her face lit up for just a moment before she caught herself and put the phone away. False alarm. I excused myself to the bathroom and quickly checked my own phone. Tyler had posted on Instagram 20 minutes ago a photo of a sunset with the caption "Missing someone special tonight." The timing wasn't coincidental. When I returned to the living room, Rachel was already suggesting we go to bed early. "I want to show you how much I missed you," she said, taking my hand and leading me toward our bedroom. The physical intimacy felt hollow, mechanical. Rachel went through the motions with the enthusiasm of someone fulfilling an obligation. Afterward, as she lay next to me pretending to sleep, I stared at the ceiling and wondered how long she'd been faking her responses, faking her pleasure, faking her love. The next morning brought the first real test of my resolve. Rachel announced over breakfast that she'd be working late that evening, helping Kevin with a presentation for a major client. "Which client?" I asked, buttering my toast with deliberate calm. "Morrison Industries. Big account, lots of pressure. Kevin's really nervous about it. I thought Kevin was working on the Patterson account this month." "Oh, right. Patterson. Industries. Same difference. All these corporate names sound alike." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "I might not be home until midnight. Don't wait up." I nodded sympathetically. "Sounds stressful. I'll grab dinner with some colleagues." Myself. The relief on her face was unmistakable. She'd expected me to object or ask to join her, and my easy acceptance caught her off guard. That sounds perfect. We both deserve a night out with friends. After Rachel left for work, I implemented the plan I'd been formulating during my sleepless night. First, I drove to Peak Fitness and signed up for a day pass, claiming I was considering switching gyms. The receptionist, a chatty college student named Madison, was happy to give me a tour. "Are you looking for personal training too?" Tyler's our most popular trainer, but he's pretty booked up. There's a lot of repeat clients who just love working with him. Tyler Brooks. I think my wife mentioned him. Rachel Martinez. Madison's expression shifted slightly. "Oh yeah, Rachel. She and Tyler have been working together for months. They have such great chemistry, you know. As trainer and client, she's made amazing progress. They usually train in the evenings. Sometimes. Tyler's pretty flexible with his schedule for his VIP clients. Actually, they have a session tonight, I think." Rachel booked one of our private training rooms. I thanked Madison and left, my suspicions confirmed. Rachel wasn't working late with Kevin. She was meeting Tyler in a private room at the gym. While telling me she'd be in a conference room with her colleague, my next stop was TechFlow Solutions, Rachel's company. I'd visited enough times for company parties that the security guard recognized me and waved me through without question. I found Kevin Martinez, Rachel's actual colleague, at his desk on the third floor. "David, good to see you, man. How was Seattle?" "Great, thanks." "Hey, are you and Rachel working late tonight on that big presentation?" Kevin looked confused. "What presentation?" "I don't have anything major due this week. She mentioned something about helping you with a client proposal. Patterson Industries. We wrapped up the Patterson project last month. I'm leaving early today for my kid's soccer game." Kevin's confusion deepened. "Is Rachel okay? She seemed really scattered lately. Made some mistakes on the Henderson proposal that weren't like her." My evidence folder growing. Rachel had lied about her colleague, her project, and her evening plans. The pattern was becoming undeniable. That afternoon, I visited Attorney Walsh's office for our scheduled consultation. Her downtown Austin practice occupied the 15th floor of a glass tower, with a view of Lady Bird Lake that probably cost her clients extra. Mr. Chen, I've reviewed the documentation you sent. The emails between your wife and Mr. Brooks establish a clear emotional affair, and the pattern of deception suggests physical involvement as well. In Texas, adultery can significantly impact property division and spousal support determinations. What are my options? You can file for divorce on grounds of adultery, which may entitle you to a larger share of community property. Alternatively, you can file no fault, which is often quicker but less advantageous financially. Given your wife's betrayal and the evidence we have, I'd recommend the fault-based approach. How long does the process take? 6 to 12 months, depending on whether she contests it? Mr. Chen, I need to ask you something important. You want to try marriage counseling? First, some couples recover from infidelity with professional help. I'd been dreading this question because I knew my answer would make everything final. Ms. Walsh, my wife didn't just cheat on me. She made me feel crazy for months, gaslighting me about her behavior while sharing our most intimate problems. With the man she's cheating with, she's turned our marriage into entertainment for someone else. I can't come back from that level of betrayal, and will proceed with filing papers. I'll need you to gather financial documents and continue documenting her affair. Don't confront her yet. The element of surprise will be crucial when we serve papers. That evening, I drove to a restaurant across from Peak Fitness and waited. At 7:30, Rachel's BMW pulled into the parking lot. She was dressed in workout clothes, but they were the expensive kind she wore for social occasions, not actual exercise. Tyler met her at the entrance, and even from across the street, I could see the way they greeted each other. The hug lasted too long. His hand lingered on her lower back. They looked like lovers meeting for a date. I took photos with my phone, feeling like a private investigator documenting my own life's destruction. They disappeared inside the gym, and I drove home to wait for Rachel's return and whatever lies she'd construct about her evening. She came home at 11:40-5, claiming exhaustion from the intensive presentation prep, in a way that had nothing to do with working on PowerPoint slides. And she showered immediately, something she never did after actual work events. How did the presentation go? I asked when she emerged from the bathroom. Exhausting, but productive. Kevin's feeling much more confident about tomorrow's pitch. That's great. I'm proud of you for helping him out. The words tasted like poison, but I needed her to keep believing I was oblivious. My lawyer had been clear about not tipping my hand too early. The next few days followed a similar pattern. Rachel would announce work commitments that I could easily verify were fabricated, meet with Tyler under increasingly elaborate cover stories, and return home to perform the role of loving wife. Meanwhile, I documented everything. Screenshots of social media posts, photos of them together, records of her lies about her whereabouts. The emotional toll was devastating. Watching someone you love systematically deceive you while pretending to care about your feelings creates a special kind of psychological torture. I found myself analyzing every word she said, every gesture she made, looking for signs of genuine affection or just more manipulation. The breaking point came on Friday evening. Rachel announced that she'd be attending a work retreat in San Antonio over the weekend, leaving early Saturday morning and returning Sunday night. It's mandatory for all senior staff, she explained, while packing an overnight bag that contained more lingerie than business attire. Team-building exercises, strategic planning sessions, the usual corporate nonsense. I nodded sympathetically while mentally noting that she'd packed the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. The one she'd claimed was too special to wear anywhere except the most important occasions. After Rachel left Saturday morning, I drove to my parents' house in Round Rock for the first time in 2 months. My mother took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug that nearly broke my composure. "You look terrible, honey. You've lost." "Wait, I haven't been sleeping well." My father, Robert Chen, looked up from his newspaper with the stern expression that had intimidated me as a child, but now felt comforting in its familiarity. "Son, your mother told me about your situation. What are you planning to do about it?" I explained my strategy, gathering evidence, consulting with a lawyer, preparing to file for divorce. My parents listened without judgment, occasionally exchanging glances that communicated decades of married understanding. "David," my mother said finally, "your father and I have been married 32 years. We've had our rough patches, times when we questioned whether we'd make it to each other. We never shared our private business with other people. Marriage requires absolute trust, and once that's broken," she shook her head sadly. "Are you sure you can't work through this?" my father asked. "Marriage counseling, therapy, starting over, Dad. She's been planning a life with someone else while lying to my face every day. She doesn't want to work on our marriage. She wants out of it. But she wants me to be the bad guy who ends it." "Then give her what she wants," my mother said firmly. "End it, but do it on your terms, with your dignity intact." That evening, alone in my childhood bedroom, I checked social media and found exactly what I had expected. Tyler had posted photos from San Antonio, scenic riverwalk shots, expensive restaurant meals, and one image that made my chest tighten. It showed 2 wine glasses on a candlelit table. With the caption, "Perfect evening with someone who makes everything better," Rachel had commented with a heart emoji. I screenshot everything and added it to my evidence folder, which now contained dozens of photos, email printouts, and documented lies. My wife was living a double life, and she'd gotten so comfortable with the deception that she was barely trying to hide it anymore. Sunday night, Rachel returned from her work retreat glowing with happiness and energy, was more affectionate than she'd been in months. Probably because she'd spent the weekend with Tyler and was feeling guilty about enjoying herself so much. "How was the retreat?" I asked over dinner. "Productive. Lots of good team bonding. I feel really energized about some new initiatives we discussed." "Any interesting presentations?" "Well, you know how these things are. Mostly boring strategic planning stuff. But the hotel was nice, and the food was decent." She described a completely fictional weekend while I sat across from her, knowing she'd spent it in bed with another man. The casual cruelty of it was breathtaking. She was sharing details about room service in conference rooms, while I knew she'd been sharing intimate moments with Tyler. That night, as Rachel slept peacefully beside me, I made my final decision. I wasn't going to confront her about the affair. I wasn't going to give her the chance to manipulate me with tears and promises and explanations. I was going to serve her with divorce papers and let her explain herself to a judge. But first, I was going to take control of the narrative. Rachel had been telling Tyler our story for months, painting me as the inadequate husband who didn't deserve her. Tyler thought he was rescuing her from a bad marriage. Both of them were about to learn that their victim had been gathering evidence of their betrayal, and that their romantic fantasy was about to become a very expensive legal reality. The war for my dignity was about to begin, and for the first time in months, I felt like I had weapons to fight with. The plan began on a Tuesday morning with a single phone call that would change everything. I dialed the number for Austin Business Journal while sitting in my car outside TechFlow Solutions, watching Rachel walk into her office building for what I hoped would be one of her last normal days. "Austin Business Journal, this is Jennifer speaking." "Hi, Jennifer. I'm calling about submitting a story tip. I have information about a local marketing firm's upcoming merger announcement that might interest your readers." It wasn't entirely a lie. Rachel's company had been discussing a potential partnership with a larger firm from Houston, something she'd mentioned months ago during one of our increasingly rare dinner conversations. What she didn't know was that I'd been documenting every piece of information she'd casually shared about her work, building a comprehensive picture of her professional life that I could use strategically. "I'd be happy to put you through to our business reporter. Can I get your name and contact information?" "David Chen. I'm a software consultant, and I have inside knowledge about some significant developments at TechFlow Solutions." The reporter, Marcus Webb, agreed to meet me for coffee that afternoon. My plan was simple but devastating. Create a legitimate news story that would require Rachel to be at work during specific hours. It's making it impossible for her to maintain her web of lies about evening meetings and overtime projects. Marcus turned out to be exactly what I'd hoped for, hungry for a scoop and thorough in his research. Over coffee at Radio Coffee on South Lamar, I fed him carefully selected information about TechFlow's expansion plans, their client acquisition strategy, and their upcoming announcement about the Houston partnership. This is solid intel, Marcus said, making notes on his tablet. I'll need to verify everything with multiple sources, of course. When would be the best time to interview? Key personnel? Rachel Martinez would be your best source for the marketing angle. She's been instrumental in developing their new client outreach strategy. Thursday evening might work well for her schedule. Thursday evening? That's unusual for business interviews. Rachel works unconventional hours. Big projects, you know. She's often in the office until 9 or 10 at night. Marcus nodded, already crafting follow-up questions in his mind. I gave him Rachel's work number and email, knowing that a call from Austin Business Journal would be impossible for her to ignore or deflect. Thursday morning, I watched Rachel's face as she read Marcus's interview request on her phone. The color drained from her cheeks as she realized she'd been specifically recommended as a source, and that the interview was scheduled for exactly the time she'd told me she'd be working late on a client proposal. Everything okay? I asked, over breakfast, knowing exactly what was wrong. Work stuff. And this reporter wants to interview me about some merger rumors. I don't know how he even got my name. That's great. You'll be quoted in Austin Business Journal. Your parents will be so proud, I suppose. She was already texting furiously, probably trying to cancel whatever plans she'd made with Tyler for Thursday evening. But Thursday was just the opening. Move. The real strategy unfolded over the following week as I systematically dismantled every lie Rachel had told me over the past months. I started with her gym schedule. On Monday, I called Peak Fitness, claiming to be planning a surprise for my wife and asking when her next session with Tyler was scheduled. Let me check our system, the receptionist said cheerfully. Rachel Martinez? It looks like she usually comes in Tuesdays and Fridays, but this week Tyler has her down for Wednesday evening instead. 7 o'clock in Studio 3. Perfect. Thank you so much. Wednesday morning, Rachel announced she'd be working late helping Sophia with wedding planning. The same Sophia who was a single ICU nurse with no current romantic prospects. That's so nice of you to help with wedding stuff, I said innocently. When's the wedding? Oh, it's still in early planning stages. It's just looking at venues and vendors. I should call Sophia and offer to help with the music playlist. You know how much she loves my DJ skills from college? Rachel's fork clattered against her plate. No, I mean, she's really overwhelmed right now. Maybe wait until she's further along in the planning process, of course. I wouldn't want to add to her stress. That evening, while Rachel was supposedly helping Sophia plan a non-existent wedding, I drove to Peak Fitness. Through the large windows, I could see into Studio 3, where Rachel and Tyler were definitely not doing any exercises that would appear in a fitness manual. The private training room had mirrors on every wall, but they weren't using them to check their form. I took photos from 3 different angles, making sure the timestamps were clearly visible. Then I drove to Sophia's apartment complex and confirmed that her car was in its assigned parking spot, meaning she was home from her hospital shift, not out planning fictional weddings with her sister. The next phase of my plan involved Rachel's parents, Carlos and Maria Martinez. They lived in a sprawling house in South Austin that Rachel visited every Sunday for family dinner, a tradition she'd maintained throughout our marriage. What Rachel didn't know was that I'd been quietly building a relationship with her parents that existed independently of her manipulation. I called Maria on Thursday afternoon. David, how are you, mijo? We missed you at dinner last Sunday. I'm sorry about that, Mrs. Martinez. Work has been crazy. Actually, I was hoping to surprise Rachel this Sunday. He helped me coordinate something special, of course. What did you have in mind? I want to invite some of her old friends from college. Maybe you could call a few people from her graduating class. I'm thinking Tyler Brooks might be fun to include, since he and Rachel have been working out together. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several seconds. David, honey, are you sure about Tyler? He and Rachel dated in college. It ended badly when he left for California without telling her. She was heartbroken for months. This was information Rachel had never shared with me. According to her version of history, Tyler was just a friend from college who'd become her trainer. She'd never mentioned they'd dated, never mentioned heartbreak. Never mentioned that he'd abandoned her once before. They dated. Rachel never told me that, oh, mijo, maybe she didn't want to worry you. It was a long time ago. But inviting him to a family dinner might be complicated, I understand. Thank you for telling me, Mrs. Martinez. After hanging up, I sat in my car processing this new information. Rachel hadn't just hidden her current affair with Tyler. She'd hidden their entire romantic history. This wasn't a casual attraction that had developed during training sessions. This was an old flame that had been rekindled, complete with unresolved feelings and a history of abandonment that probably made Tyler's current attention even more intoxicating. The manipulation went deeper than I'd realized. Rachel had deliberately chosen a trainer who was also her ex-boyfriend, then spent months sharing our marital problems with him while pretending their relationship was purely professional. Every complaint she'd made about our marriage, every intimate detail she'd shared about our bedroom life, had been delivered to a man who'd already broken her heart once and was now positioning himself to do it again. But this time, I would be the collateral damage. Friday brought the most devastating revelation yet. I received a call from Kevin Park, my colleague and friend, who sounded unusually tense. "David, we need to talk. Can you meet me for lunch?" We met at Torchy's Tacos on South First, far enough from both our offices to ensure privacy. Kevin looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with his drink cup and avoiding eye contact. "What's going on, Kevin?" "Heard something yesterday that I can't stop thinking about. My girlfriend works at Peak Fitness as a yoga instructor. She mentioned that one of the trainers there has been bragging about sleeping with a married client." My stomach dropped, but I forced myself to remain calm. "Okay, the trainer's name is Tyler. The client's name is Rachel." "David, I'm so sorry. What exactly did your girlfriend hear?" Tyler was talking to another trainer in the break room. He said he'd been working on this married woman for months, that her husband was some clueless tech guy who worked all the time. He said she was finally ready to leave her marriage, and they were planning to make it official soon. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. Tyler wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He was publicly bragging about it to his coworkers, turning our marriage into locker room entertainment. He'd reduced me to a stereotype, the oblivious husband who worked too much and paid too little attention to his wife. "There's more," Kevin continued. "Tyler told the other trainer that Rachel had been feeding him information about your finances, your work schedule, even your personal insecurities. He said she was helping him plan the perfect timing for their relationship to go public." "What kind of information about my finances? Your income, your savings, the value of your house?" "Tyler apparently knows exactly how much money you make and how much Rachel stands to gain in a divorce." This revelation reframed everything. Rachel wasn't just having an affair. She was conducting reconnaissance on my financial situation while feeding Tyler information that would help him plan their future together. She'd turned our most private conversations into strategic intelligence for her lover. "Kevin, I need to ask you a favor. Can your girlfriend find out more details about what Tyler's been saying? Dates, specific conversations, maybe even record something if possible?" "David, are you sure you want to go down that road? Sometimes ignorance is easier than knowledge." "I'm way past the point of choosing ignorance. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with." That weekend, while Rachel was supposedly attending a marketing conference in Dallas, I implemented the final phase of my evidence-gathering operation. I hired a private investigator, a woman named Janet Rodriguez, who specialized in infidelity cases. "Mr. Chen, based on what you've told me, your wife is exhibiting classic patterns of someone planning to leave a marriage. The financial reconnaissance, the systematic lying, the public displays with her lover. These are all indicators that she's preparing for divorce and wants to ensure she's in the strongest possible position. What do you recommend we document everything over the next 2 weeks? I'll follow her, photograph her activities, and gather evidence that will be admissible in court. Meanwhile, you should protect your assets. Move money to individual accounts, cancel joint credit cards, and prepare for her to file first." "You think she's planning to file for divorce?" "Mr. Chen, I think she's planning to file for divorce and claim that you were emotionally abusive, financially controlling, or otherwise at fault for the marriage's failure. The fact that she's sharing your personal information with her lover suggests she's building a narrative that portrays you as the villain in this story." The thought that Rachel was planning to rewrite our entire relationship history, painting me as an abusive husband to justify her affair, filled me with a cold rage I'd never experienced before. She wasn't just betraying me, she was preparing to destroy my reputation and take half of everything I'd worked for while claiming to be the victim. But Janet's investigation would provide me with ammunition Rachel didn't know I possessed. While she was planning her exit strategy with Tyler, I was building a case that would expose their affair and her systematic deception. The war for my future was about to begin, and this time, I would be fighting with the truth on my side. The confrontation came on a Wednesday evening in November, exactly 3 weeks after I'd hired Janet Rodriguez. Rachel walked through our front door carrying takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant, humming softly to herself. She looked radiant, glowing with the kind of happiness I hadn't seen from her in over a year. The irony wasn't lost on me that she'd never looked more beautiful than when she was planning to destroy our marriage. "I brought pad thai from Sway," she announced, setting the bags on our kitchen counter. "Thought we could have a nice dinner?" Together? We haven't done that in a while. She was right. We hadn't had a real dinner together in months, mostly because she'd been too busy having intimate dinners with Tyler at upscale restaurants around Austin while telling me she was working late or helping non-existent friends with imaginary problems. "That sounds perfect," I said, pulling out the manila envelope that Janet had delivered to my office that afternoon.
Oh.
"I have something special planned for tonight, too." Rachel began unpacking the food, chattering about her day while I arranged the photographs across our dining room table like a macabre deck of cards. Each image told part of the story. Rachel and Tyler entering the boutique hotel downtown. Rachel and Tyler kissing in his car outside Peak Fitness. Rachel and Tyler holding hands at the farmer's market while she was supposedly at a work conference in San Antonio. "David, the food's getting cold," Rachel called from the kitchen. "Are you ready to eat? Come into the dining room. I want to show you something first." She walked in carrying 2 plates of pad thai, stopping abruptly when she saw the photographs spread across our dinner table. The plate slipped from her hands, crashing to the floor in an explosion of ceramic and noodles. The sound seemed to echo in the sudden silence that filled our house. "David, I can explain, can you?" I picked up the photograph of them kissing and held it toward her. "Explain this. Explain how you're helping your sister plan a wedding that doesn't exist while you're actually making out with your ex-boyfriend in a hotel parking lot. Explain how you've been working late on client presentations, while you're really getting massages at spa resorts with a man you claim is just your trainer." Rachel's face cycled through a series of emotions: shock, fear, anger, and finally, a calculated coldness I'd never seen before. The mask she'd been wearing for months finally slipped completely away. "How long have you been spying on me? How long have you been lying to me?" I countered. "Actually, let me answer that. According to your email history, which I've also documented, you've been sharing intimate details about our marriage with Tyler Brooks for 8 months. You've been physically involved with him for at least 4 months. You've been systematically lying to me about your whereabouts for 6 months." I reached into the manila envelope and pulled out printed copies of their email exchanges. Text message, screenshots, and bank statements showing charges at restaurants and hotels on days when Rachel had claimed to be working or helping family members. "You hired a private investigator?" Her voice was incredulous, as if I was the one who'd violated trust in our marriage. "I hired a private investigator because my wife turned into a stranger who lied to me every single day. Because the woman I married became someone I couldn't recognize. Because you made me feel crazy for suspecting what you were actually doing." Rachel sank into one of our dining chairs, her hands shaking as she picked up one of the printed emails. It was one of her longer messages to Tyler, describing in explicit detail why she'd stopped being intimate with me and how much she was looking forward to their weekend getaway in Fredericksburg. "This isn't what it looks like," she said weakly. "Rachel, this is exactly what it looks like. You've been having an affair with your ex-boyfriend while planning to leave our marriage. You've been sharing our financial information with him so he knows exactly how much money you'll get in a divorce. You've been rewriting our relationship history to make me sound like an emotionally abusive husband who doesn't deserve your loyalty." I pulled out the folder labeled financial evidence and spread those documents across the table too. Credit card statements showing charges at Victoria's Secret on days when she'd supposedly been too busy for intimacy with me. Hotel receipts from weekends when she'd claimed to be visiting family, spa treatments, and expensive dinners that she'd never mentioned but had clearly enjoyed with Tyler. You used our joint credit card to buy lingerie for another man. You used our savings account to fund romantic getaways with your lover. You've been stealing from our marriage to finance your affair. Rachel's composure finally cracked. Tears began streaming down her face, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration that her carefully constructed plan had been exposed before she could execute it. "You don't understand the pressure I've been under," she sobbed. "You work all the time. You never talk to me about anything meaningful. I felt so alone, and Tyler was there for me when you weren't. I work all the time to pay for this house, your car, your clothes, your gym membership where you met your boyfriend. I work all the time so you can pursue your marketing career without worrying about money. And instead of appreciating that sacrifice, you used it as an excuse to cheat on me? It's not just cheating. Tyler and I have a real connection. He understands me in ways you never have. Tyler understands you because you've been giving him a roadmap to your personality for 8 months. You've been telling him everything about our private life, our problems, our intimate moments. Of course, he knows how to manipulate you better than I do. He's been studying you like a textbook while I've been trying to be your husband." I reached for the final folder, the one that contained the most damaging evidence. Janet had been thorough in her investigation, uncovering information that even I hadn't expected. "Did you know that Tyler Brooks has done this before?" 3 times, actually. He targets married women who work out at his gym, convinces them their husbands don't appreciate them, and then moves in for the kill. His last relationship ended when the woman discovered he was also seeing 2 other married clients simultaneously. Rachel's face went white. "That's not true. It's all documented." Janet spoke to his previous targets. "Tyler has a pattern. Rachel. He's a predator who specializes in destroying marriages. And you've been so flattered by his attention that you didn't bother to research the man you're planning to leave me for?" I handed her a printed report detailing Tyler's relationship history, his financial problems, and his reputation among other personal trainers in Austin. The man she thought was her soulmate was actually a serial homewrecker with significant debts and a history of abandoning women once the thrill of the chase was over. "You're lying," Rachel whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. I'm the one person in your life who's been telling you the truth. Your parents think you're still happily married. Your sister thinks you're helping her plan a wedding. Your coworkers think you're dedicated to your job. Tyler's coworkers know exactly what he's doing because he's been bragging about sleeping with you in the gym break room. That final revelation hit her like a physical blow. Rachel doubled over in her chair, finally understanding that her grand romance was actually a calculated seduction that Tyler had been discussing with his colleagues, like a conquering trophy. "I never meant for this to happen," she said through her tears. "Yes, you did. You chose this. Every lie you told, every secret meeting you arranged. Every time you came home and pretended to love me while planning to leave me, you chose all of it." I gathered the photographs and documents back into their folders, my hands steady, despite the emotional hurricane raging inside me. "I've already filed for divorce, Rachel, on grounds of adultery. You'll be served with papers tomorrow." "Morning at your office?" Her head snapped up, tears replaced by panic. "David, wait. We can work through this. We'll end things with Tyler. We can go to counseling. We can start over." "Start over." "Rachel, you've spent 8 months systematically dismantling our marriage, while lying to my face every single day. You shared our most intimate secrets with a man whose goal was to destroy our relationship. You've used our money to finance your affair and our home as a place to plan your exit strategy."
"What exactly?"
"Would we be starting over with? Please don't do this. I love you. I made a mistake, but I love you. You love the financial security I provide. You love having a backup plan in case Tyler doesn't work out. You love the idea of being married to someone stable while having passionate affairs with someone exciting. But you don't love me, Rachel. If you loved me, you never could have done any of this." I picked up the folders and headed toward our bedroom to pack a bag. I'd already rented a furnished apartment near my office, something Rachel didn't know because I'd learned to keep secrets too. "Where are you going?" she called after me. "I'm leaving. This house will probably be sold as part of the divorce settlement anyway. You can stay here until then, or you can move in with Tyler. I honestly don't care anymore." As I packed my clothes, Rachel followed me around our bedroom. Alternating between apologies and justifications, tears and anger, she promised to change, threatened to fight the divorce, claimed she'd been confused and needed time to figure out her feelings. But her words felt empty, rehearsed, like lines from a script she'd been practicing in case this moment ever came. David, please. 5 years of marriage has to count for something. I stopped packing and looked at her directly. 5 years of marriage counted for everything to me. Now that's why this hurts so much. You threw away something I treasured like it was garbage. You turned our love story into Tyler's entertainment, made our most private moments into gossip for gym employees. You can't undo that level of betrayal with apologies and promises. But people recover from affairs. Couples work through this. Some couples do. Couples where the cheating partner is remorseful and takes responsibility and cuts all contact with their affair partner. You've been planning to leave me for months. You've been building a case against me to justify your behavior. You've been stealing from our marriage to fund your new relationship. This isn't a mistake you made, Rachel. This is who you chose to become. I closed my suitcase and picked up my laptop bag. At the bedroom door, I turned back one final time to look at the woman I'd planned to spend my life with. I hope Tyler makes you happy, Rachel. I hope he's everything you thought he was, and nothing like the man he actually is. But either way, you're no longer my problem to solve. Walking out of that house felt like stepping out of a burning building. Behind me was everything I'd worked for and believed in, now consumed by lies and betrayal. Ahead of me was uncertainty, loneliness, and the challenge of rebuilding a life I'd never expected to rebuild. But for the first time in months, I could breathe freely. The gaslighting was over. The lies were exposed. The manipulation had been documented and filed with the court. Rachel Martinez had been my biggest mistake, but she was no longer my burden to carry. Now she was my regret to overcome, and overcoming her was going to be the most liberating thing I'd ever done. 6 months later, I stood on the deck of my new apartment in North Austin, watching the sunrise over Lake Travis with a cup of coffee that actually tasted good for the first time in years. The silence wasn't oppressive anymore. It was peaceful. No more lying, no more second-guessing every conversation, no more wondering if the woman sleeping next to me was dreaming about another. Man, the divorce had been finalized 3 weeks ago. Rachel had tried to fight it initially, hiring an expensive attorney who specialized in protecting cheating spouses. But Janet's evidence was ironclad, and Texas law wasn't sympathetic to adulteress. Wives who'd stolen marital funds to finance their affairs. I kept the house, most of our savings, and my dignity. Rachel kept her job in Tyler Brooks, though from what I'd heard through mutual friends, that relationship was already showing cracks. Apparently, Tyler had grown bored once the thrill of stealing someone else's wife wore off. Janet had been right about his pattern. He was already paying attention to a new married client at Peak Fitness. A pattern Rachel discovered when she found flirtatious text messages on his phone. The predator had moved on to fresh prey, leaving Rachel to face the reality that she'd destroyed her marriage for a man who never intended to stay. My phone buzzed with a text from Kevin Park. Still on for lunch today? There's someone I want. You two meet. Kevin had been trying to set me up for weeks, insisting that I was ready to start dating again. I wasn't sure about that, but I was open to meeting new people as friends. Isolation hadn't served me well during my marriage, and I was determined not to make that mistake again. The woman Kevin introduced me to was named Lisa Chen, a software architect who'd recently moved to Austin from San Francisco. She was intelligent, funny, and refreshingly direct in her communication. During our conversation over barbecue at Franklin's, she mentioned her own divorce from a manipulative husband, which convinced her she was lucky anyone would put up with her personality. The hardest part wasn't ending the marriage, Lisa said, picking at her brisket. It was unlearning all the toxic patterns he'd taught me. I spent 2 years in therapy figuring out what healthy communication actually looked like. How do you know when you're ready to trust someone again? I asked. You don't? You just decide that living in fear of being hurt again is worse than never experiencing real connection. But you also get better at recognizing red flags. Once you've seen manipulation up close, you can spot it from miles away. We talked for 3 hours, and I found myself laughing more than I had in the entire last year of my marriage. Lisa didn't play games or speak in coded messages. When she was interested in something, she said so. When she disagreed with me, she explained why. It was revolutionary after years of trying to decode Rachel's hidden meanings and unspoken expectations. That evening, I called my mother to tell her about the lunch. "You sound different, David. Lighter? I feel different. I feel like myself again. Are you interested in this, Lisa?" Maybe, but not in the desperate way I was interested in Rachel. I don't need Lisa to complete me or validate my worth. I just enjoy her company. That's exactly how it should be, honey. Your father and I fell in love because we enhanced each other's lives, not because we couldn't survive alone. After hanging up, I reflected on how much I'd changed since that devastating phone call I'd overheard almost a year ago. The man who'd stood in his kitchen listening to his wife plan a date with another man would barely recognize the person. I'd become that David had been desperate for approval, willing to accept crumbs of affection, constantly trying to prove his worth to someone who'd already decided he wasn't enough. This David knew his value. I had a thriving software consulting business, genuine friendships, a relationship with my parents that wasn't filtered through Rachel's manipulation, and most importantly, peace of mind. I slept well at night because I didn't have to wonder what lies I was being told or what secrets were being kept from me. 3 weeks later, Lisa and I went hiking at Hamilton Pool Preserve. As we sat by the waterfall sharing trail mix and talking about our career goals, she asked me about my marriage. "What went wrong, if you don't mind me asking?" She fell in love with someone else but couldn't be honest about it. Instead of ending our marriage cleanly, she chose to deceive me while planning her exit. The betrayal was worse than the cheating. How did you get through it? I stopped trying to save someone who didn't want to be saved. I stopped competing for affection. That should have been freely given. I realized that loving someone doesn't mean accepting poor treatment from them. Lisa nodded thoughtfully. My ex used to tell me I was too demanding when I asked for basic respect. It took me years to understand that wasn't true. Exactly. Rachel used to make me feel selfish for wanting honesty and fidelity. Now I know those aren't unreasonable expectations. They're the foundation of any healthy relationship. On the drive back to Austin, Lisa reached over and took my hand. It was a simple gesture, but it represented everything my marriage had lacked: spontaneous affection, genuine connection, mutual respect. "I'd like to see you again," she said, as I walked her to her door. "I'd like that too." We kissed goodnight. And it felt like a promise rather than a performance. Lisa wasn't trying to manipulate me or extract something from me. She was simply expressing honest affection for someone she genuinely liked. That night, I deleted the last photos of Rachel from my phone. Not out of anger or bitterness, but because I no longer needed reminders of who I used to be or what I'd survived. Rachel Martinez had taught me valuable lessons about self-respect, boundaries, and the difference between love and addiction to unavailable people. She'd been my biggest mistake, but she'd also been my greatest teacher. Because of her betrayal, I'd learned to value honesty above charm, integrity above passion, and self-respect above the desperate need to be chosen by someone who didn't appreciate what they had. My phone lit up with a text from Lisa. "Thank you. For a wonderful day. Sweet dreams." I smiled and typed back, "Thank you for being exactly who you are." For the first time in years, I fell asleep excited about tomorrow instead of dreading what lies it might bring. Rachel was no longer my regret to overcome. She was simply part of my past, a chapter that had ended so the real story of my life could begin. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.